Streaming live.
Hello.
Are we live?
Let's say, bro.
Okay. So we see there's Zenemy, Nicholas in the chat, Skeptical Jesus. So first time being live in a couple months. Got a new camera, and I'm getting a new computer that we're gonna set up upstairs to make things easier when it comes to streaming. So, yeah, I guess let's get started. If there's anything wrong with the audio, just let me know so I can fix everything. I guess first story, talking about Cuba.
You didn't do a test stream?
No, we're getting incompetent. I gotta get back in the groove of things.
Well, I guess you can see your audio levels.
Yeah.
Wait, you might have to pull the mic closer to me.
Let's update you on what's happening in Cuba. There have been some rare protests that have broken out there in the capital, Havana. The island is grappling at the moment with its worst
I think it is picking up, yeah.
blackouts in decades. It's been triggered by a US blockade. We saw hundreds of angry
Maybe
Cubans
we
pouring
should
on
use the headphones.
the streets in several neighborhoods late on Wednesday. You can see them here. They're
Thing
so
what?
angry about these fuel shortages.
Okay, here, one sec.
Your ear gunk off of the fucking thing, or I'll clean it, but it
Okay.
needs to be clean.
All to the best start. Bluetooth. JLab.
This is what streaming is
Bluetooth.
all about. Oh my god, Gene.
They've blocked roads. They burn
Where's the-
rubbish on the streets,
the
as you
wet
can
wipe
see.
thing?
This marks the biggest single night
The wet wipe thingy.
Yeah. I told you I need to clean these fucking things before I put them in
Well,
my
we
ear.
got wet wipes in the kitchen. Okay, she's gonna leave us.
of
Known for
demonstration in
snickety when it comes to like earbud wax.
Havana since the energy crisis took hold in January. Well, earlier, Cuba's energy minister said the island had completely run out of fuel, oil and diesel, leaving the power grid in a critical state as this blockade from the US is really squeezing the country's supply. Global Affairs reporter Mimi Swaby is with me, who's been looking into this and covering
So,
it.
those in the chat, why do you think they're having a difficult time with power and energy? I know Venezuela is one of the world's largest distributors of oil. Seems like Trump liked to meddle there. And now we're having issues with Iran, which is really fucking with the global economy. So seems like Cuba, along with all the sanctions that we've subjected them to throughout several decades, are dealing with this these sort of compounded factors.
For weeks, it was moving to this point, wasn't it, Mimi? We've been reporting on the shortages for a long time, and now they've run out of fuel.
Exactly. The energy minister, Vicente de la Olive, has finally said the island has no diesel, it has no oil, and has very limited gas. He said the power grid was in a critical state. This has been exacerbated, this fuel shortage, by the US blockade, threatening tariffs to any country selling oil to Cuba.
Now, Marco Rubio, he also has this invested interest in Cuba. And everyone's talking about how he's kind of like pulling the marionette strings with Trump, and it seems like it's working. So it kind of shows that Trump's very susceptible to any sort of influence from people in his inner circle.
So it's once very kind of pliers. Venezuela and Mexico haven't sent any fuel to the island. Only one oil tanker, a Russian oil tanker, has been permitted to pass through this blockade. But according to the energy minister, the delivery from that oil tanker has now run out, leaving the island in complete darkness, so to speak.
So complete darkness. This seems maybe like an obvious question, but
Yeah.
what has it
Cannot. I
Oh.
cannot hear
meant for
anything.
life there? How are people getting by?
People are really struggling for months.
Gotta,
It ain't got no gas. Oh my god, you're gonna stick that back in your ear. Hi, Mom.
Now the situation has been deteriorating at a quite rapid rate. I've heard from residents that they're waking up in the early hours of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., when there is a brief moment of electricity to do their daily tasks, be that cooking for the next day, washing clothes. People are enduring prolonged blackouts. These can last up to 22 hours, commonly in Havana and the
welcome to the Tech Issue stream.
neighbouring, kind of the outskirts of the neighbourhoods there. That is on top of basic goods being scarce. There
Now
really
it's like
aren't.
cutting in and out. I think we gotta put them in, take them out at the same time so they sync up. Oh boy. See, this is what happens when you don't stream for like
Well,
5 months.
you said you were spending all day on it. This is the first thing you should do.
Yeah. Okay. Both out. They sync. Connect.
Oh, I'm gonna get on the chat on
Okay.
in chat on my phone.
Connecting.
Any basic goods and food.
God.
Is it not?
Many individuals are saying they are living solely off bread, and anything you try and preserve.
Let me see. Ready to pair.
Althea.
Connect. Bluetooth connected.
Okay.
Battery full.
I have to clean it one more time.
Fridges, you can't preserve it because there's no energy to preserve it. Solar panel has been something that many people have been talking about. We've had a few humanitarian aid.
Okay, next vid.
The latest now on Cuba, where protesters have taken to the streets as the island faces more blackouts amid an unusual mission to the island by sea.
Well, they're talking about sanctions on Cuba and how they're having issues with energy shortage crisis.
CIA Director John Ratcliffe for meetings with top Cuban
Problems, though, right?
officials.
And then
Matt Rivers has
have sanctions on everybody, right?
Well, we have tariffs on everybody. Cuba, we've kind of been punishing them because they sided with the Soviets during the Cold War and during like their involvement in the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, however, there are so many other countries that collaborated with the Soviets, and then there's Russia themselves, which were the heart of the Soviet Union, where we've actually started like trading with them again, like the post or after the collapse of the Soviet Union. However, for some reason, we continue to bully Cuba and pretty much sequester them from like trade with the rest of the globe. So they've definitely been dealt the worst sort of like hand when it comes to the aftermath of participation in the Cold War.
the story, Matt. You just returned from Cuba.
Yeah, and the situation on the island, George, really unprecedented. This surprise, unannounced trip to Cuba comes at a time of some of the worst tensions between the United States and Cuba that we have seen in generations. CIA Director John Ratcliffe heading down to the island with a message to tell the Cuban government to stop being what a senior CIA official called a national security threat. Ratcliffe telling the Cubans they need to stop allowing
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, did you even
adversaries like China and Russia unfettered access to the island. The Cubans, for their part, acknowledging publicly the meeting took place and saying they
Oh no. Yeah, it's making me nervous. Maybe we could just mute the mic.
told the CIA they pose no such threat. The meeting comes as a U.S. oil embargo.
Okay, let me turn off the earbuds again.
Unprecedented strain
How
on the
much does the audio bother you guys?
when it's playing.
island, choking off its fuel supply. Blackouts, which have long been a problem on the island, are now worse than ever. Just yesterday, half the island's power grid failing. You see those protests there. They are unusual. And we know Donald Trump has threatened military action against the island for months now, repeatedly saying that if Cuba's government doesn't make significant reforms, he is not afraid to take action. That is a message the CIA says was reinforced at yesterday's meeting. Rebecca?
Yeah, looking for fundamental changes there. Okay, Matt, thank you.
Remember what?
He had just. You're really gonna click that on and off every single time?
Yeah.
No, you're not, because you click play and pause like 1,000 times a minute.
Oh, Brian's here. Turn this into a workout stream. Get on the treadmill, Gene. Do you think I should do a future like treadmill stream?
Yeah.
Give people what they want?
Make sure you wear loose panties.
The echo isn't terrible.
Cuba says it has officially run out of oil.
Right after Venezuela, he started going after. I think how the saber needs to sharpen her claws right now.
Yeah.
After Venezuela, he started going after Cuba, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Marco Rubio's definitely trying to influence him towards, like, fucking with Cuba.
The country's power grid is now buckling under pressure. New satellite images from
And
NASA.
Fidel Castro, he passed away several years ago, not too long ago. So it's the first time they've had any sort of shift in terms of their head of state since the Bay of Pigs invasion, which that was in like the, I believe it was in, yeah, the 60s, because that was JFK's first term.
Here show large parts of the island of 10 million going dark at night
You got to deal with Althea.
as the energy crisis
What's that?
Don't worry about it.
steepens. On the ground in Havana, empty gas stations, traffic lights out, and some neighborhoods are losing power for as long as 22 hours a day. Cuba's energy minister now saying the country has, quote, absolutely no diesel and absolutely no fuel oil. The government is blaming U.S. sanctions in what it calls an energy blockade. The Trump administration says the problem is Cuba's.
Now, with the earbuds, it wasn't doing that sort of cutting in and out thing. like whenever I use them outside of streaming. So for some reason, it's deciding to do this as we're live.
Economy.
Here I could.
And a government that cannot afford to buy fuel. The crisis is now spilling into the streets. Protesters across Havana have been banging pots, blocking roads, and demanding the lights come back on. For years, Cuba relied on oil from Venezuela and at times Russia and Mexico to keep the country running. But many of those supplies have dried up after the U.S. threatened penalties against.
One thing the government will do is they will, like a lot of countries will do this, especially countries that are legitimately communist countries. They'll shut off the power to the entire country for a certain amount of hours throughout the day. Yeah, to save on costs.
Do they do that with water too?
I don't think they do it with water, but they tend to. Well, if you're part of the 1%, of course, you have 24-hour electricity.
Countries shipping fuel to the island. Now there are signs of quiet diplomacy behind the scenes. The Cuban government confirming on state TV that CIA Director John Ratcliffe visited Havana this week. This U.S. government plane was spotted there Thursday, just after President Trump posted on Truth Social.
He says, I mean, it sounds like the U.S. has kind of a fucked up all their supply lines. Like the U.S. What do you think?
What?
Zenemy says it looks like the United States has fucked up all their supply lines. Well, it seems like they've also...
Not according to Trump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have already won the war with Iran, but that is a problem where, because of all the tariffs they've been putting on our allies in the West don't want to help secure, like, the Strait of Hormuz, so he's kind of shot himself in the foot that way.
That, quote, Cuba is asking for help, and we are going to talk. And last night, the CIA released this image showing Ratcliffe meeting with Cuban officials.
I hear an echo.
The State Department says the U.S. is offering up to $100 billion in aid, but only if Cuba agrees to major reforms. In the meantime, many Cubans are sleeping on rooftops to escape the heat, cooking with charcoal, and waiting hours just to charge their phones before the power cuts off again.
They're sleeping on rooftops to escape the heat, but like the more elevated you are, usually the higher the temperature is.
Well, are the roofs black?
I don't know. Well,
because if they're white, maybe, but it seems like you'd just be tanning, like sunning.
Yeah, well, I mean, black attracts the heat, but
yeah,
like I wore that, I'd be in like the cellar.
Now to the crisis in Cuba. The U.S. ramping up the pressure on the government as crippling blackouts and a teetering economy have sparked unrest on the island. And tonight, what sources are now saying about a possible indictment of the 94-year-old former president, Raul Castro. Here's ABC's Alex Brachet.
Tonight, the island nation of Cuba largely in the dark as its energy grid is on the verge of collapse. Extensive blackouts across the country have sparked protests. Cubans banging on pots and pans, shouting, "Turn the lights on." Many without power up to 22 hours a day, as a U.S. oil blockade and sanctions have caused a crippling energy and fuel shortage, part of an ongoing pressure campaign by the Trump administration.
They need help, as you know. And you talk about a declining country. They are really a nation or a country in decline. So we're going to see. We have a lot to talk about on Cuba.
This week, during an unannounced visit to Havana, CIA...
I mean, you could say that pretty much any country on the planet, except for a few, are countries in decline. So, plus... they've kind of been in limbo the past several decades, so I would say that they're not really... I mean, now they're really dealing with a decline recently, but I'd say that for a while, it's not accurate to say that they're a country in decline, because they've just kind of been in this stagnant sort of state of progress or development.
Director John Ratcliffe delivering a message from the president that the U.S. is prepared to engage with Cuba on economic and security issues, but only if Cuba makes fundamental changes, claiming the island nation is a safe haven for countries like Russia and China. The Cuban government insists it poses no threat to U.S. national security.
What's that? What changes?
Trump wants Cuba to make changes?
They want them to pretty much install some kind of regime change where whoever's in charge of the new regime is pandering to the United States.
Nor will it allow actions against any other nation to be carried out from Cuba. The U.S. State Department has offered Cuba $100 million in humanitarian aid, an offer Cuban officials say they are considering. Though U.S. officials tell ABC News there are disagreements as to how that money would be distributed. And sources tell ABC News that the U.S. could announce an...
And a lot of people that travel to Cuba, because it's been sanctioned by like the rest of the world, they'll talk about how it's like a time machine. It's like traveling back to the 60s and 70s. They all have vehicles that date back to that era. So yeah, they've kind of, I guess, similar to going to an Amish village, but instead of it being the year 1810, it's 1970.
Indictment of former Cuban President Raul Castro in the coming days, a move that would further escalate tensions between the two countries, though Castro is now 94 and stepped down as Cuba's Communist Party leader in 2021. Wait.
Alex Boucher, we appreciate
The U.S. with a stern warning to Cuba, imploring the island nation to stop being a safe haven for countries like Russia and China. CIA Director John Ratcliffe delivering President Trump's message in
So he's saying it's a safe haven. How exactly is it a safe haven? I wonder if they'll go into detail there.
person while leading an unannounced trip to Havana Thursday. The CIA saying the U.S. is prepared to engage with Cuba on economic and security issues, but only if Cuba makes fundamental changes. The Cuban government insists it poses no threat to U.S. national security, nor will it allow actions against any other nation to be carried out from Cuba, a sentiment echoed by their foreign minister in an exclusive interview with our Whit Johnson.
The Trump administration alleges that Cuba is rolling out the red carpet for foreign adversaries like Russia and China.
Cuba is not a threat to the U.S. National security or foreign policy or economy or the American way of life.
Ratcliffe's visit is happening in the midst of an economic crisis.
I think that guy's telling the truth.
Yes.
I don't know. He's from Cuba.
The U.S. oil blockade and sanctions have caused a crippling energy shortage. Extensive blackouts across the country sparking protests. Cubans banging pots and shouting, "Turn on the lights." The frustrations growing over the country's energy grid, now on the verge of collapse. Many Cubans are without power up to 22 hours a day, getting by in the dark with car headlights and
Do you think you could get by not having power for 22 hours a day?
flashlights. This week, Cuba's energy minister declaring the country has no fuel and no diesel. President Trump has called Cuba a declining country in need of help. The U.S. State Department has made a public offer of $100 million in humanitarian aid, something Cuban officials are now mulling over. U.S. officials telling ABC News there are disagreements about how that money would be distributed. Now, the U.S. has offered that humanitarian aid multiple times this month. Meanwhile, sources say the U.S. could announce an indictment of former Cuban President Raul Castro as soon as next week, Rachel.
Yeah, it could come. All right, Alex, thank you. And Whit, we just saw there in that piece, you were just in Cuba last week speaking to the foreign minister. I mean, what were your takeaways from being on ground there?
I mean, the big takeaway for me is the looming question, how much longer can this really last? I mean, when I was there last week, it was desperation. I mean, we saw people actually sifting through the trash to try to find food. 20-hour rolling blackouts. The gas stations were all closed. People were getting their gas on the black market. And now it's even worse a week later, and we're starting to see people pour out into the streets. They are demanding a change of some kind. When I spoke with the foreign minister, he insisted that internal affairs are off the table in these discussions with the U.S. He said that there's no progress in those discussions, but it seems like the administration is determined to force change, whether the Cuban government likes it or not.
Yeah, those U.S.
Next vid.
They are running.
Okay, let's get to the next story. They're showing the same thing. Okay, so I guess let's get to Iran.
President Trump, fresh from his China trip, again confronts a stalemate with Iran. In private, Trump says President Xi backs...
Wait, there's a stalemate, but didn't we already win the war with Iran?
Did we?
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure a few months ago, Trump said that, like, 50 times throughout the span of just a week.
America's opposition to an Iranian nuclear program. In public, the Chinese leader offered little support.
I'm not asking for any favors, because when you ask for favors, you have to do favors in return.
Russia's Vladimir Putin, another partner to the Iranian regime, now headed to China himself this week. On the flight home, the president told reporters he's not happy with Iran's latest proposal.
When I looked at it, and if I don't like the first sentence, I just throw it away.
Iran's foreign minister on a visit to India Friday, saying trust and mixed messaging are the main impediments to negotiation.
We are in doubt about their seriousness, but the moment we feel that they are serious and they are ready for a fair and balanced deal, we certainly proceed in the course of negotiations.
All the while, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz remains at a virtual standstill, choking the world's oil industry and other vital Gulf exports. And Iran provocatively said it is planning...
We won the war that it's not a war like 15 times.
Well, I mean, are you saying that Trump has a reputation for saying things that, if you fact check it, turns out to be inaccurate? You're drinking, like, smoothie through, like, a coffee mug.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extensive long-term control. Complicating the picture, last week, stock markets dropped and the cost of US borrowing rose. All eyes will be on Wall Street tomorrow. President Trump insisting...
I don't think about American financial situation. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
Israel's stance, unmistakable. Targeting Iran's proxy Hezbollah, despite an extension of the so-called ceasefire with Lebanon. Israel hitting 100 Hezbollah targets this weekend, it said. Back at home, President Trump weighing a return to war with Iran. Last night, posting on social media, the calm before the storm. And underscoring China's importance, Iran just announced that the official who has been leading the negotiations with America on behalf of Iran has just been made special representative to China. Willie?
Keir Simmons in Jerusalem for us. Keir.
Here, I'm going to try to... This is so awkward.
We'll just stop. I don't think... Is it even echoing that bad? Oh, whatever.
I don't know why it's like cutting in now with the headphones.
Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go.
Mutations exist here in the Middle East tonight, with the UAE's Ministry of Defense announcing that 3 drones entered their airspace from the west. 2 of them were shot down, but 1 of them landed near a nuclear facility, sparking a fire.
God. Just what we need, like right when we go live, that's when it decides to not fucking work.
You have multiple.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
The UN's watchdog.
I'm gonna disconnect them again.
No changes to radiation level were detected. Nobody was injured, but it underscores how we remain in this stalemate between Iran and the United States, despite the fact that the president is coming off this highly anticipated trip.
So how bad's the echo, everybody? Maybe,
Okay, play it again. Let me see.
Well, it shows that it's picking it
to
up.
China.
I just
Well, they
wanna
found
see.
some agreement with the Chinese leader. The president
Okay,
says he is not
the desktop
interested
audio
in
is
using
still
China to leverage
louder
Iran
most
to
of
get
the time.
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna try to put on a noise filter. Oh, I already have
Wouldn't
voice
you
suppression.
do that on the mic?
Well, yeah, you put it on the audio input.
Oh, okay. Why'd
them
you
back
turn the
to the
desktop audio
negotiating
down?
table. And at this point,
Well, so, doesn't, so that way, I don't know, it's less likely to get picked up by the mic.
both Washington and Tehran say there's just too much they
You
don't
can
agree on.
barely tell it's an echo. See?
Oh, okay.
Stop thinking about
And every time they make a deal, the next day it's like, we didn't have that conversation. And that's taken place about 5 times. There's something wrong with them. Actually, they're crazy.
We have no trust to Americans. This is a fact. And this is the main obstacle in the way of any diplomatic effort.
The Strait of Hormuz remains at the center of this, but Iran saying they have a plan in order to get
Oh,
ships.
now Saudi Arabia and the other Arab Gulf states are all pissed off that all of this going on. They're not happy. So it's like not only are we pissing off our Western allies where they don't want to help secure the Strait of Hormuz, now like all the Arab states are pissed off because they rely heavily on their distribution of oil. Like that's their major source of revenue. So Trump doesn't really seem to be doing a good job when it comes to diplomacy. It seems like he's making the entire world and our allies from all across the globe, every single subcontinent, hate us.
Going through. However, it comes with a multitude of caveats. Their national security chief for the Iranian parliament saying, in this process, only commercial vessels and parties cooperating with Iran will benefit from it. The necessary fees will be collected for the specialized services provided under this mechanism. This route will remain closed to the operators of the so-called Freedom Project. That would be the United States and its allies. You hear mention there of fees being applied, which certainly sounds an awful lot like tolling, something that has been condemned by the Western world as well as some Iranian allies such as China. Meanwhile, President Trump speaking with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel tonight about that trip to China, as well as the future with Iran.
But if there's one nation we're not pissing off, it's Israel. I think by the end of Trump's presidency, we're still going to be pretty tight with them.
So in the early days of the war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, my colleagues and I started seeing a lot of these videos that were filmed on U.S. military bases and also foreign bases where the U.S. operates in the Gulf and the Middle East. And they showed a number of Iranian, usually drone strikes on key infrastructure. And then not too long after that, we started seeing a stream of Iranian satellite imagery that came out of Iranian state media that were then filtering down through social media. And these images claim to show very mass swaths of destruction at these bases that the U.S. operates out of. And normally what we would do is we would hit these up against American satellite imagery. But the U.S. government requested for American satellite companies to restrict the release of this imagery in the Middle East and the Gulf. Not even restricted, but even to retroactively remove images going back to early March. And also U.S. officials weren't talking a whole lot about specific attacks on these U.S. bases.
I mean, best defense is good offense.
And when they did speak, they said the air defenses were working as designed.
Our air defenders are operating at the very top of their game. I couldn't be prouder.
We wanted to cut through the allegations and the talking points and understand the reality of the damage. And so we couldn't just take this Iranian satellite imagery on face value. We had to actually verify it, cross-reference it, and all that. So what we did was we collected all these images that the Iranians released. These are dozens and dozens of images from quite a few different countries. And then we looked at European satellite companies, which did not have similar restrictions on the release of imagery. So this, for example, is in Saudi Arabia. This is the Prince.
This video is like 5 minutes in length, and he still hasn't really presented any noteworthy information.
Open airbase where the U.S. operates out of. And here's the Iranian image right here, where you see there's 12 buildings right here in the before, and then you see about 4 or 5 of them have been destroyed in the after image. And then we take the exact same location in this imagery from Europe.
Did you know, there's satellite imagery that shows that these drone strikes create damage and collateral? Did you know that?
What?
If you look at the satellite images of where the drone struck, it shows damage from the drone striking there.
Provider, and it's identical. Right? I mean, you look at
this video is very informative.
Exact same buildings destroyed, the same pattern, same location. We did this across the board. We did this with dozens of images. We didn't find even one of them that was fake. Overall, we found that Iran and Iranian-backed militias had attacked 18 different military sites in 7 different countries that the U.S. operates out of. Other news organizations have reported similar amounts of damage, but we found that in addition to large U.S. bases in the region, even sites where the U.S. had small or temporary presence were struck. U.S. Central Command declined to comment on our findings. This is the widest-ranging attack on U.S. military sites in the region ever. Some of these Iranian strikes killed American service members. A strike on a makeshift command post in Kuwait at a port killed 6 American service members. And a strike in Saudi Arabia killed 1. So we took all this imagery we compiled, we sent them to a number of defense experts.
They don't really seem to be doing a good job with all the murdering, because Israel conducts some kind of strike and 7 dozen people die.
So put all this into context. And most experts that we spoke to said these attacks on these military sites did not hamper the U.S.'s offensive capabilities in Iran. But our analysis does show that there are new vulnerabilities in America's security posture in the region. And back in March, my colleagues at the Times reported that many American bases in the region were evacuated. As we looked at the satellite imagery, we saw that these were fairly precise drone attacks across the entire U.S. footprint in the Middle East. So, for example, here in Bahrain, this is the U.S. Fifth Fleet's base and also the U.S. Navy's headquarters in the Middle East. There were attacks on the communications infrastructure here.
You're getting chilly.
Yeah, it's really...
The northern part of the base. So you see here, there's some radomes, satellite dishes, and also down here also some larger warehouses too that were hit by Iranian drone strikes. This radome...
Okay, good. So what we're seeing here is that there are bases or sites that were hit by Iranian drones. You can see it there in the satellite imagery.
Right here, a little bit northeast of this baseball field, was hit in a one-way drone attack. And it's not just these giant bases that are being attacked. Down a little further south in Bahrain, there's a...
Okay, now let's go over here. I'm going to guess what's going to happen here is he's going to show another site or location that was hit by a drone strike. Let's see it.
Base with the Bahrainis and the Americans, where they worked together to combine air defense. And there were 3 attacks here from the Iranian forces. There were 2 here on a radar site, very, very small.
Oh, okay, yeah, you see there were attacks there because you can see it through the satellite images.
Their system. So you see the shard right here. And then one a little bit west of here, either a warehouse or a hangar. Was hit by a pretty precise attack here that got the roof. And this is out of the Gulf as well, too. So.
Yeah, there was an attack there.
So if you look up north in Syria, there's an airfield up in the northeast of the country where the U.S. has been operating lately. They pulled out in mid-April, but they were operating here for a few months. And Iranian-backed militias targeted this base repeatedly in March and April. But Iran claimed this attack took out U.S. barracks. In fact, these are actually just grain storage structures. So this shows that even when the satellite image is accurate...
Oh, look, okay.
Iran claimed this attack took out U.S.
So
barracks.
In
fact, these are actually just grain storage structures.
Okay, yeah, see?
So this shows that even...
Yeah, there's damage there.
When the satellite image is accurate,
Can you see
the
it?
claim needs to be checked.
Yeah, satellite images.
In a Camp Victory outside Baghdad, in Iraq, there were Iranian-backed militias that launched drone attacks and took out about 6 or 7 different buildings.
So you picked a good video, I take it?
Well, this is, this is the Times. It's, I don't know, pretty bad, considering that one of the major, news publishers out there, this is some of their higher tier
warehouse was hit. There was drone footage actually released by the Iranian-backed militia that carried out the attacks. This drone video is obviously used as propaganda footage, but it helps you understand the nature of their attacks. They flew around Camp Victory for a few days.
Okay, so this is the nature of their attacks. No other country or no other faction militia out there has done this. They use drones and then they pilot the drones until they get to location, and then they detonate. And then when you look through the satellite images, you can see that when they hit their target, there's collateral. So we're going to see what their drone tactics look like.
And they eventually hit a warehouse, they hit shelters.
Oh, it eventually hit the warehouse. It eventually hit the target.
Fuel tanks, radar systems.
Sometimes they don't hit the target if they're shot down, or if there's other issues, but if they manage to get to the target, they hit it, and then there's collateral, and you can see it through satellite images.
They even took out a Black Hawk helicopter at one point.
The total cost of these attacks is difficult to estimate, but the loss of the aircraft of these bases likely ranges around $1 billion, according to analysts from the Center for Strategic International Studies, a nonpartisan research center.
They also said that a single radar system damaging Jordan cost about $500 million to repair or to replace. Experts that we spoke to said that the American air defense systems in place at their bases across the Gulf had around a 90% interception rate ideally. But even
so how do you save the last 10 minutes?
You have to set it up on there. But there's a timestamp right there. So if you want to save that,
we'll do it.
90%. There's still these 10% of Iranian drones and missiles that can get to the air defense shield. And this may pose a problem for the United States. With its large physical footprint in the Middle East, Iran is able to send cheap drones towards these bases. What used to be an asset for the United States may also now be liability.
Okay, so they're able to send drones to those places. Yeah.
Hold on, you have
Day 74 of the war, and the standoff between the United States and Iran continues. Of course, the politics behind that goes backwards and forwards, but from a military perspective, it's relatively simple. When a country goes to war, really goes to war with another country, it tries to attack the political centre of gravity of the enemy, either to destroy that political centre of gravity, or to bend it to its will, or to force it to do something which it wouldn't otherwise have done. And when this war started, Israel and the United States began a bombing campaign, and they conducted, apparently, 21,000 attacks across Iran, up to the 7th of April. But it clearly didn't work. They tried to decapitate the IRGC.
So I know Iran, the way their military is structured, is that all the different branches of the military operate separately from one another. And India has a similar system, but with India, it's more of it's less for tactical reasons, and it's more for checks and balances. And it's only for the major branches. So the Air Force, the Navy, their army, they all separate individually to prevent military coups. But with Iran, it's like that, but dozens of different branches, and it's kind of like what you see with a lot of militias and terrorist cells, where they have all the different cells and stuff that operate independently. They get their funding, but if one particular branch gets decimated in a strike, all the other ones can continue operating, and that's why the response seemed kind of all over the place or disorderly when there was the initial strike with the United States and Israel, where they were bombing certain banks and other public infrastructure within the different Gulf states. But a lot of that's because you had all these different higher ranked military officers that were all coordinating certain attacks and strategies separately from one another, and that's what's causing issues here.
Islamic.
It's like the Hydra. To kill the Hydra, you gotta cut off all the heads of the Hydra. And at least, I guess Iran, they have a pretty good system there.
Revolutionary Guard Corps, but they didn't. They tried to destroy the center of decision-making in Iran, so there'd be no alternative to the Iranians but to surrender, but that didn't happen either. So attacking the political center of gravity was a failure by the 7th of April. So if you can't attack the political center of gravity, the next thing to do is to go for the military center of gravity. And what the Americans have achieved is that they were able to take out the whole of the Iranian Air Force, but Iran can still operate in the air with ballistic missiles and drones. The Americans took out the whole of the Iranian Navy, but still the Iranians...
Now, Iran, they do have a lot of drones.
They're able to operate in the Strait of Hormuz with small craft and drones and robotic ships. They're still able to be a sea power of sorts. And the Americans gravely damaged the IRGC and the Iranian ground forces. But if the Americans were to land on any of the islands in the Gulf, or still less, any part of Iran itself, it's a pretty fair bet that they'd end up fighting pretty quickly. So the Americans have got plenty of facilities in the air.
So Israel's over there. Now, Saudi Arabia, they have a pretty decent military or whatever. Apparently, they're a lot of skepticism in regards to how well their troops are trained, but they are up there in terms of the world's top 20 militaries. So why doesn't Saudi Arabia send in some troops to help out the United States? I mean, I don't think America should be there to begin with, but seems like, you know what, if Saudi Arabia loves all the America sucking its dick, then why don't they follow through on their end, like Israel?
So Saudi Arabia likes the U.S.?
Yeah, there are Saudi Arabia and Israel are two big Middle Eastern allies. And Saudi Arabia, for like the last couple decades, have been pretty much doing what Israel does to Palestine. They've been doing that to Yemen. And Yemen deals with the same kind of instability that Gaza deals with because of the fact that we support all the sanctions that Saudi Arabia once applied to Yemen, and they pretty much cut them off from global trade, and similar to what they've done with Palestine. And then, the Houthi militia, they ended up taking control within Yemen, and that's part of like Iran's axis of resistance. So a lot of this is just kind of supported, or it's exasperated by the U.S. like sort of involvement in the region or interference in the region. We're not making things any better.
They've got air base in Saudi Arabia, air base in the UAE, all of which could be used. They've got other air bases too.
And people will point to Hezbollah and Hamas and the atrocities that they're guilty of, but then they ignore all the fucked up stuff that Saudi Arabia does to Yemen.
Not short of air power, nor are they short of naval power. There are no fewer than 2 carrier strike groups in the area and 2 Marine Expeditionary Units, plus a brigade of the 82nd Airborne, ready for all sorts of operations. They're not short of military power at all in the area. But that military power is essentially about 400 or 500 miles away from the Strait of Hormuz, and that's the Americans' problem. The real center of military
Ryan says Saudi Arabia doesn't want their oil production infrastructure bombed by Iran. Saudi Arabia is not happy about the U.S. bombings. Yep. So we do have some future videos that go over that. But again, like I mentioned earlier, the United States has pissed off all our allies in Europe, all our NATO allies, who, if Trump didn't like try to apply all the tariffs globally, I could see Britain, France, Canada all sending in troops there, like Britain and France sending their aircraft carriers in along with ours. But because we pissed them off, it's like, fuck you. And then they're also, now it's left to like the United States and their allies within the region. Of course, Israel's getting involved when it comes to their like airstrikes on civilian infrastructure, but like now it's fucking with the world's like oil trade, and now we're probably going to lose more support from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and then the other Gulf states.
For the Iranians is the Strait of Hormuz. And although the Americans have got plenty of military hardware in the region, it's quite a long way away. So what they've tried to do with Operation Freedom, which only lasted for a day, remember, but is still on the stocks, President Trump has said maybe he'll go back to doing it. Operation Freedom was an attempt to use 6th-generation warfare, not to move into the Strait of Hormuz, but to use drones and missiles and AI and intelligence in order to pressurize anything the Iranians did while all of the ships that are trapped in the Strait of Hormuz come out. And that's the Americans' main problem.
Well, see, like, there's the
Is
Suez
did,
Canal,
while all of the ships that are trapped in the Strait of Hormuz,
which is like man-made. So that was like during the days of the British Empire, and it was like early, right at the dawn of the 20th century, and it was built around the same time that the I'm having a brain fart moment, but whatever. They why don't they just build another canal across Saudi Arabia from like Kuwait all the way across the entire country?
Looks really easy.
I don't know. Do you think they'd have a challenge there?
Sounds like you think they'd have a challenge.
Or maybe they could build another canal that cuts through like Oman and the UAE.
must come out. And that's the Americans' main problem. 6th-generation warfare. Maybe it'll work, maybe it wouldn't. It was only tried for a day. If the Americans were to go back to 5th-generation warfare, what they would do is they'd move their big carrier strike troops towards the Gulf, into the Gulf of Oman, and they would take control, physically take control of the Strait of Hormuz. They'd fight a battle for the Strait of Hormuz. And if they fight that battle, they would win it. But if they win it, they would also almost undoubtedly take some losses. And that would be the main problem for President Trump. This is the USS Abraham Lincoln. Very hard to imagine the Iranians could ever sink that, but they might damage it.
Yeah, and that's the thing with a lot of these military vehicles, is that a lot of times they're very tentative or apprehensive to actually deploy them and utilize them because they're so fucking expensive. It's like, what if one actually is destroyed? the missile hits it. So there's all these like military vehicles, mostly naval vehicles, that cost like billions of dollars to maintain. And a lot of them will just sit in some sort of naval base or some dock somewhere, and they never actually see any action. So that's just part of like the military-industrial complex.
They might be able to do something. They might be able to kill or injure some of the personnel. And that, even a damaged Abraham Lincoln, even a damaged destroyer, would actually be a political tragedy for President Trump, which you find very difficult to live with in terms of American public opinion. And so here we are back at the standoff. The Iranians obviously calculate that they can live with the material damage of this war longer than he can live, President Trump can live, with the political damage that the war is doing. And the Iranians are saying now, they say, if the Americans attack us again, we've got all sorts of surprises up our sleeve, with all sorts of things that they won't expect that we can do. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But the fact that they're saying that is a very good example of the nature of the warfare we're into. We may be in a world of potentially sixth-generation robotic warfare, but the politics of...
we may be in a world where robotic warfare is a thing. I think we're already there.
Asymmetric warfare still apply, and they apply in this war in a very obvious way.
Now, see, they just need to establish the mosquito drones that just fly in swarms and lobotomize people by like crawling in their ears.
It's day 77 in the Iran war. Now, for the past few weeks, we have heard a lot about the Strait of Hormuz and shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. And today there's further news about the Strait of Hormuz, but this time it doesn't concern shipping. Iranian news media are reporting that there may be turbulence ahead involving undersea cables. Now, the reason that we've been paying so much attention to the Strait of Hormuz over the past few weeks is that it's a global passageway for shipping, a crucial passageway. And what may be less known to people around the world is that it's also a crucial passageway for international data traffic. And we see here there are lots of cables in the Strait of Hormuz connecting the countries in the region to one another.
Oh yeah, they're engaging in some kind of subterfuge here.
But also to the rest of the world. And more cables are being planned. There is, for example, one that is in the process of being installed. It's 45,000 kilometers long and will connect all kinds of countries, including the countries here in the region. 45,000 kilometers is a very long cable, but even though cables can be extremely long, they are also extremely thin, about 1 inch in diameter. That's the size of yours and my fingers. Very thin, but...
I know there's that one, like, notorious cable that extends across the entire Pacific Ocean. And it's very crucial when it comes to like the world wide web or the global internet's like sort of infrastructure, and it's just seems like it would be something where I don't know, it maybe needs a greater level of security.
Very powerful, these cables are. And they work tirelessly day in, day out, every second, transmitting data. In fact, nearly all digital traffic goes through cables. An astonishing 99% it is calculated by the research firm Telegeography, which also has calculated that on an average day, more than $10 trillion worth of money goes through undersea cables. These are phenomenal figures. And that is why it matters so much what happens.
All our advanced technology, it comes down to a big, long wire. Yeah, pretty much.
In any part of the world, because these cables all connect different countries and we all depend on the different cables. We don't just depend on one cable each in one country. And that is why we should be paying attention to what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, right at the beginning of the war, the crew that was about to install that...
Now, we're pissing off the older generations in these Arab states because of fucking with their oil revenue. But what happens if their like online infrastructure takes a giant hit and then the younger generations there don't have access to their social media and don't have access to like all their online platforms? I think that really caused the U.S. approval rating to really decline amongst all the generations there.
Famous 45,000 kilometer cable had to declare force majeure and to suspend that installation because it was too dangerous. Other installation crews have also had to suspend the installation. It was too dangerous. And now, today, there is further news from Iranian state media, which is that the Iranian government is considering imposing levies on cables in the Strait of Hormuz. Here they are again. We don't have any details yet. We don't know if it would be all cables. We don't know how much the levies would be. We don't know how the operators would pay the levies, considering that Iran is under international sanctions. And we also don't know what would happen if any operators refuse to pay the levies. But what we do know is that Iran would have the option of causing harm to those cables
What about sort of underwater, maritime sort of kamikaze drones? You can have a little like kamikaze drone that you pilot it to the like ocean like floor and detonate it. Seems like that wouldn't be too difficult.
The cables, perhaps, whose owners refuse to pay. And what we have seen in recent years are numerous incidents, for example, in the Baltic Sea, where ordinary ships have dragged their anchors across undersea cables and cut and damaged them for what seem to be geopolitical reasons. This is why we should worry about what is happening on the seabed. Now, I'm not saying that this will happen in the Strait of Hormuz, but what we do know is that the people in Iran, in the region, and indeed the rest of the world depend on these cables. And we also know that there is no real alternative to undersea cables.
Okay, next vid.
I want to take you live to the ground in Iran for a rare look inside the country. CNN operates in Iran with the permission of the government.
Is the echo still barely noticeable?
But maintains full editorial control of the reports. Matthew Chance is there, and you got a first-hand look at some of the destruction on the ground.
A rare glimpse of the tightly controlled Islamic Republic. We drove out of Tehran, the bustling but still tense capital, past anti-American slogans daubed along the route, to the town of Karaj, and one painful scar left by the latest US-led war. When finished, the B-1 bridge was meant to be a symbol of Iranian engineering prowess, the tallest in the region. But for now, it's become a battered monument to ruthless American air power.
Wow, well, you really get a sense of the incredible, destructive...
Okay, I don't know. I think we could do better, because I still see a lot of standing buildings and structures in the background, and the entire bridge and the entire region within like a 4-mile radius isn't completely decimated. And I don't think we see enough like children and elders with a bunch of missing limbs scattered all over the place. So, I mean...
Your favorite?
Well, I don't know. We need to follow through with... Or we need to reach the same level of carnage that Israel does. They can do it. I mean, shouldn't we do better? We spend more money on our military than the next 7-8 countries combined.
Force that was at play with these US airstrikes that smashed this concrete look and twisted all this reinforced steel. Let's take a look so we can get a bit closer to the edge. I mean, look at the concrete pylons that have been absolutely shattered. And down here, I mean, it's a huge drop of 450 feet. This was, as I mentioned, the highest bridge in the Middle East. And there were people down below who were caught up in this and killed.
And the Iranian official who was sent to show us around insisted this targeting of infrastructure and the killing of innocent civilians was a war crime that should be punished. It's an allegation US officials categorically...
War crimes only matter if it's the other side that commits them. If our side commits the war crimes, then, hey, it's war. That's what happens. Civilians die in the crossfire.
Deny. The Americans say that this was a legitimate military target, that this bridge would have been used for the transport of drones and missiles.
I mean, to be fair, Iran, they did attack us first. Oh, wait. I guess we attacked them first this time around.
Therefore, it was fair game.
And people use that logic, hey, they attacked them first, so what if Iran, I don't know, they find a way to blow up a US bridge and they kill a few dozen Americans? I wonder if people will be like, well, hey, it's civilians dying, that's just a casualty of war, or that's just a facet of war. So, hey, we did attack them first.
That's a false narrative from President Trump. This bridge hadn't even opened. Not a single car had driven over. It was built for the use of our people and was just called a military target so it could be bombarded, demolished and destroyed. Back in April, Trump posted video of the attack on his Truth Social platform, urging Iran to make a deal before it's too late. Now, after his state visit to China, there's still no deal, and Trump is raising the issue again, amid concerns the fragile ceasefire with Iran could soon break.
Okay, so now it's just the Gulf states are pissed, our Western allies don't want to help, so now he's trying to pander to China, which says something when China's sort of the last party to go to.
We haven't knocked out other than one bridge, and we did because they misbehaved. But we have bridges we could knock out. We could knock out their bridges and their electrical capacity.
Maybe if I have issues pulling them here, I can go to Iran and help build some more bridges there. Help with their civil infrastructure.
Within 2 days, we could knock out the whole thing.
It's a terrifying possibility, but one that doesn't seem to be giving Iran much pause.
Why is it important for this country to rebuild the bridge now, when there's the possibility that the Americans could strike it again in the near future? Why now?
We're not thinking about that. Our focus is on the reconstruction of our bridge. It was designed and built by our engineers, despite many difficult years of sanctions.
And amid growing tensions with the US, Iranian officials insist this symbol of the Islamic Republic will rise again.
Good idea, yes. And then I can start doing streams from Tehran instead of Baltimore. Do you want to move to Tehran with me?
Nope.
No, why not?
Well, Sarah, those remarks by President Trump that he could easily destroy Iran's bridges and its electrical capacity, obviously raising tensions with the Islamic Republic.
Next vid.
Saudi Arabia is now emerging as one of the most important players in the rapidly evolving crisis surrounding the Strait of Hormuz, as new reports suggest growing strategic differences between Riyadh and Washington over how far the region should move toward direct confrontation involving Iran. The latest developments come after several international media reports claimed that Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman refused to authorize the use of Saudi airspace.
And, like, in a later stream, we should probably go over the royal families in a lot of these, like, Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia, because, they've done a lot of really fucked up shit.
Key military infrastructure for any direct American mission connected to Iran. The reports surfaced during a period of rising uncertainty across the Gulf, with energy markets, shipping companies, and investors closely monitoring every signal coming from Washington, Tehran, and Riyadh. According to reports published this week, Saudi Arabia continued limiting support for operations that could place the kingdom at the center of a wider regional escalation. Reports linked to discussions surrounding a proposed American maritime security initiative suggested Riyadh did not approve offensive use of facilities.
The death of a 5-year-old girl in outback Australia
Okay, so this is Australian news.
has reignited one of the country's most painful and controversial debates.
He was an innocent little baby.
For years, I have raised concerns about the failures within child protection.
The child protection system was built to remove Aboriginal children from their families.
Well, yeah, that's the thing they did throughout a lot of, like, British colonies. They decided that a lot of the indigenous people living in those lands that they colonized, that they're too barbarous to be raising their own children. So the state pretty much took custody of entire generations of children.
But why is the protection of Aboriginal children such a contentious topic?
And they usually don't teach this in, like, I don't know how Australia is, but in Britain, they really do keep their students in the dark when it comes to all the atrocities of the British Empire. And a lot of people act like when it comes to your sort of colonial slavery, white person, Trail of Tears genocides, they seem to think it's very unique to the United States, when a lot of countries like Britain and France are just as bad as America.
What does it tell us about the ugly divide still present in Australia?
The death of the 5-year-old girl, now known as Kuminde Little Baby, has shocked not just this remote part of the outback, but wider Australia too. And to understand its case and its importance, you've got to understand the multiple Aboriginal communities that live here in the Northern Territory. Now, we've been here for the past few days reporting on her death, and it's not the typical Australia many people think of. Bondi Beach, wealthy cities like Sydney. This is a town of...
There seems to be, like, a wealth disparity between white Australians and Aborigines Australians. Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Do you think there's any history behind it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Might have a lot to do with what I just described earlier.
30,000 people. You can drive around it in just 10 minutes. The nearest city is Darwin, and that's 15 hours drive away.
Kuminde Little Baby was the name given to the girl after she died. It's custom in many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities not to use people's names after death, so as not to disturb their spirit. She went missing on April the 26th, just hours after being put to bed in a home in an Aboriginal community. A massive search followed. Police, helicopters, and hundreds of volunteers tried to find her.
People had hope. They came out en masse because they had hope that we were going to find this little baby girl.
5 days later, her body was found. A 47-year-old man has since been charged with her murder.
A family that loved, deeply loved their little girl, and anyone who's seen the pictures, it is obvious in those photos that this little girl was loved. Absolutely loved.
6 reports had been made about Kuminde Little Baby's welfare in the weeks leading up to her death, and concerns were raised by domestic violence shelter workers and a relative. There's no suggestion any of those reports are about the accused man, who only arrived in the community days before the girl's death and wasn't a relative. But the leaking of those reports has been criticised by Indigenous leaders. Catherine Little, who runs an organisation which works with Aboriginal children across the country, told me more about the system.
So in the Northern Territory, we have really strict mandatory reporting standards. Many of those notifications were things like lice And instead of mandatory notifications, what we really should have is mandatory support.
She feels Aboriginal families are disproportionately targeted for often minor issues.
That shouldn't be something that becomes somebody's record for someone, an unscrupulous person, to release at a time of great harm like this.
Now, 3 child protection workers in the Northern Territory have been stood down as investigators look into what was done or not done in Kumanjayi little baby's case. But the important context here is the history of the Australian government and their involvement with Indigenous children. Across the Northern Territory, there have been years of policies which have proved controversial. Firstly, housing. On the outskirts of Alice Springs, there were 16 town camps like Kumanjayi little baby lived in. The camps first sprang up in the 1880s when Aboriginal people were displaced from their traditional lands by European settlers and prevented from entering Alice Springs by racist policies. By the 1970s, they were formalised as town camps. There's often overcrowding, poor facilities and infrastructure. Then, a major policy put in place.
Yeah, it seems to have a lot of parallels with, like, South Africa.
Between around 1910 and 1970.
White missionaries have come among the coloured Aboriginals and are doing noble work in saving the blacks from themselves.
Australian government agencies and church missions forcibly removed thousands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families to get them to assimilate.
The darkness of ignorance has been banished by the bright light.
They gotta civilize them, gotta westernize them.
To faith.
They were placed with white families to merge.
Because that's why the white people came there and colonized the land. It's because they cared about the people there and they wanted to bring them into modernity. Which, that's what the governments claimed was their goal, was to help them. It wasn't to exploit the land for resources.
Into society. Frank was one of those children, removed from his mother at the age of 5. She was so traumatised that she spent the rest of her life in a mental institution.
It's my mother. I thought about all my lifetime. I couldn't.
How do you think she was treated in that mental institution?
How do you think she was treated?
I don't know. Well, she's a woman. She's a minority. And then there's the issue of, I don't know, how people with psychiatric issues are treated. Seems like that's like a triple sort of founded threat.
Except any sorry thing after what's happened to me and my mother.
This is known as the stolen generation, and its traumatic impact is still felt by communities across Australia.
The child protection system was built to remove Aboriginal children from their families and has not moved from that.
Then, in 2007, the Northern Territory Intervention. This was an Australian federal government initiative aimed at combating alleged child sexual abuse in Aboriginal communities.
I fear that there'll be another case of stolen generation children because they'll be taken away from their mothers and fathers and grandparents and uncles and aunties.
And it created fear and stigma in communities.
Australia was told all Aboriginal men were pedophiles. That's what they heard. That is what Australians heard.
Intervention.
That sounds like in the United States, when they were abolishing Jim Crow laws and everything, they started to, then the drug war became a thing. So then there were like mass arrests in African-American communities for certain drug use. And that was pretty much, used as a substitute for Jim Crow laws. So it seems like that's what we're seeing here.
Didn't save one child, but demonised communities and made people feel lesser citizens of this country.
New dads felt like they couldn't change children's nappies anymore. Like, this is really horrific stuff. Men stopped bathing babies. They stopped helping out because what they heard was...
nappies.
If you do those things, you're a pedophile and you're going to get locked up and your children are going to get taken away.
Leaders in the community say that very rarely do they get consulted on decisions that impact them, and that over history, policies have harmed Aboriginal families, taken control away from communities, and perpetuated racism. Today, there is still a huge disparity. Indigenous children are 12 times more likely than non-Indigenous children to be taken into care, and 27 times more likely to end up in prison. That track record creates a difficult tension. There are some who argue authorities might worry about being seen to remove Indigenous children from their homes, even when there are legitimate welfare risks.
No child should lose their life because governments lack the courage to act.
This week, the Northern Territory Child Protection Minister Robin Cahill said there would be a review into the Territory's child protection system, as well as reforms.
I will not be a minister who abandons yet another generation of Territory kids.
But Aboriginal organisations have criticised the move, accusing the NT government of once again portraying Aboriginal communities as a risk to children's safety. In the case of Kumanjayi little baby, her family were vulnerable, but they had nothing to do with their baby's death.
Her death has been very painful for people here. I spoke to one woman the other day who said the community was feeling numb, but it's also brought into sharp focus the inequalities here, the systems that were meant to protect Kumanjayi little baby, but absolutely failed.
The biggest protective factor you can offer Aboriginal children is contact with their families. Her family did not fail her. Her family did not fail her.
It's been pretty quiet whilst we've been here.
Well, I mean, don't you think state institutions are a much better place for kids than their own parental households?
partly because of a thing called sorry business, which is a period of collective mourning where people take part in cultural practices and ceremonies. They don't want to talk, they want to focus on the family of Kumanjai little baby. The message that comes out loud and clear is the importance of family, of community, and listening to Aboriginal people.
And I think honesty and being honest as politicians, that we've all failed here, and what do we all need to do to try and fix this?
It becomes a political grab, it becomes a headline instead of actually talking to community and finding out what's going on.
Communities have the solution, and we need to listen to what people are saying.
Tonight we can show you the moment two teenage girls trashed the Woolworths, throwing food on the floor and at workers. The attack sent the local shopping centre into lockdown. The destructive duo arrested and charged overnight.
Two teenage girls on a supermarket rampage.
Good on you guys. Well done.
At Woolworths Capera, the duo, aged 14 and 15, go on a smashing spree.
Yeah, they seem to be having fun.
Allegedly attacking innocent
Did you ever
shoppers
do anything like this when you were a teen?
No.
and staff, plunging the Great Western Supercentre into lockdown.
Next thing I hear screaming.
Lockdown.
Lots of commotion going on.
Liam was at work across the centre and captured the moment a bottle was thrown at a Woolworths employee.
Oh my god.
So what do we blame here? Video games? Social media?
I don't know.
AIDS?
Why are they saying they did it?
I don't know.
Woolworths, everyone got evacuated out, and then they just went back in and just trashed the whole store. Customer and a Woolworths employee ended up in the hospital.
Police pounced, arresting the teens who now face serious charges, including assault occasioning bodily harm.
The 14-year-old applied for bail today, but media were excluded from the courtroom. The 15-year-old's case will be heard on Wednesday when she makes her bid to be released from custody.
Woolworths says its primary focus remains the well-being of those affected and is continuing to support its team members. There's no place for violence in any...
Do you think they should charge them as adults?
I don't know.
Hmm.
What depends, I guess.
No, Brian, you don't blame the parents. It's never their fault. Unless they're not white. If the parents are Aborigines, then blame the parents. If they're white, blame social media or video games.
It's quite surprised, to be honest, to be seeing it in Capera especially as well. It's quite a nice area.
The damage more than just the mess left behind in the aisles. Anna McGraw, 7 News.
I'm only TikTok influencers.
The notorious neo-Nazi group labelled White Australia has officially been outlawed. Let's go live to Emily Francis at State Parliament in Sydney. Good morning, Emily. Participants, they could now face jail time.
That's right, Leah. Members of that neo-Nazi group, White Australia, are waking up as alleged criminals this morning after new federal laws came into effect overnight. The group, formerly known as the National Socialist Network, have become notorious for public demonstrations and provocative rallies, including one here outside New South Wales Parliament, where members held Nazi symbols and anti-Semitic banners. Now, the government says the group has attempted to dodge these new laws by rebranding under different...
I know you're sort of... white supremacy or white supremacist groups are really starting to resurface throughout much of Europe, most notably Italy, but even Germany. Like Germany for the longest time is probably one of the most progressively advancing countries in the Western world, trying to distance themselves from the Nazi Party in World War II. But apparently things are starting to shift in the opposite direction. I don't know.
But that the hate-fueled ideology has remained the same.
Apparently Zoomers are more conservative. I guess racism was seen a steady decline throughout the latter half of the 20th century and the early 2000s, but now it's starting to go back up again. Do you think, I don't know, do you think the SJ, at least in America, do you think maybe the SJWs had some impact there? Because you always had the generations that are the younger generation's always fuck you, mom, fuck you, dad. I'm sick of all this garbage. And I think, the boomers and Gen X or whatever, probably fairly bigoted generations. So millennials want it to be all about pride and progress. But then you got the pendulum swing. So Zoomers are oh my god, I'm sick of getting in trouble for saying racist things. Fuck the older generation.
Those associated with that ideology.
But then the Zoomers kids, they're going to be super progressive. So I think nothing's ever going to change. It's just, it's...
Which ones can't read?
Gen Alpha. So that's a really noteworthy issue, is that literacy is also on... So racism's going up, literacy's going down. Do you think maybe there's a correlation there? One issue's probably... contributing to the other?
Harsh penalties. Take a listen.
Supporting, funding, training, recruiting,
joining or directing this group constitutes a criminal offence with a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison.
It's just the second.
Okay, so that I don't necessarily agree with. So the United States is kind of in its own league or whatever when it comes to the rest of the developed world, where people do have a level of freedom of speech where unless you're trying to encourage or incite violence or making threats, you can say all the bigoted shit that you want. So in most countries, or developed countries, you can face legal consequences for presenting bigoted views. So there was one notorious case in Ireland where the dude posted a video of his dog doing the howl sort of Nazi salute, and he faced criminal charges for it. So here it seems like just simply being a neo-Nazi results in criminal or having to go to criminal court.
Group outlawed under these new federal laws after his Tahrir, and a clear warning from Canberra that authorities are ramping up the fight against violent extremism in the wake of the Bondi Beach terror attack. Liam.
Yeah, there's certainly landmark changes. Thank you very much, Emily Francis in Sydney.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is convening an urgent meeting with Congo and 2 of its neighboring countries amid an outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus. 80 deaths and nearly 250 suspected cases are attributed to the outbreak. It's happening in the remote Ituri province. One other death has been reported in Uganda. This morning, health officials are concerned that conventional treatments may not be effective against this strain of the highly infectious virus. MTS Taib is tracking all the latest details.
So I don't think Ebola isn't an airborne disease like COVID, so it doesn't spread nearly as easily. But I mean, I'm waiting for when are we going to get super AIDS or super Ebola, where it's just as contagious as as COVID or the bubonic plague, but it's also as deadly as AIDS.
Our London newsroom, MTS, good morning.
Adriana, good morning to you. Well, the world was...
Do you think I'd get in trouble if I messed around with AI and bought some CRISPR device for genetic engineering and fucked around with that?
Yes.
Yeah. So you don't think I should do it?
No. You can't be trusted.
alerted of this fast-moving and deadly outbreak of the Ebola virus just yesterday. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo's government has said it's activated a public health emergency operations center, strengthened epidemiological and laboratory surveillance, and ordered the rapid deployment of response teams, all part of attempts to contain this deeply serious outbreak.
This remote corner of the eastern Congo is on edge. In a nearby gold mining area, Ebola is spreading fast, and people are dying.
Well, it doesn't matter as long as it stays in Africa. Then... once it leaves Africa, then the rest of the world should care.
December is a motorcycle taxi driver.
Where's he
We're very afraid, he says.
I'm joking, chat. Hey, all the mods know I'm joking, so if somebody gets pissed off in the chat, they know to inform them.
What's happening? December is right.
Maybe.
To be afraid, Ebola, which is spread through direct contact with bodily fluids and through broken skin, causes severe bleeding and organ failure. There's no proven cure for the virus, and according to the World Health Organization, the average fatality rate is around 50%. CBS News medical correspondent Dr. Celine Gounder.
So we're dealing with an Ebola strain.
Now, Brian's mentioning the hantavirus. So what's funny is that even though it's not a really serious threat in terms of being some kind of major epidemic, you can see in all the comments of all the videos, people are like, oh my god, I can't deal with another shutdown. People still have quarantine PTSD.
For which we have no vaccines or treatments. And then it's also an area where you have a lot of gold miners who are migrant workers. And this is exactly the...
I could, I work from home, I could cope with another shutdown. I don't like interacting with people. I kind of liked it where I'd walk to the store and there'd be no one else outside.
You walked to the store?
Yeah.
Back then?
I had my mask on.
No, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Situation in the West African outbreak where you had open borders, migrants, cities. And that spells trouble.
This is the Democratic Republic of Congo's 17th outbreak of the deadly viral disease, and it's unfolding against the backdrop of a deepening security crisis where clashes between rival militia groups have killed dozens of civilians in recent weeks. Abdirahman Mahmoud is with the World Health Organization.
Well, we know very well that the country has experience, but the region where it is happening is highly volatile with the humanitarian situation going on and the population moving around. So our response is to stand with the regional government, and the country neighbor in terms of solidarity to show again that they can control this outbreak.
And Ebola was first discovered back in 1976 in what is now the DRC and is thought to have spread from bats. Now, this morning, health experts...
On Congo, they're currently butting heads with Rwanda. So there's, I don't know, if more fighting breaks out and there's a third Congo war, what if, like, Ebola runs its course? It's going to be like the Spanish flu in World War I.
Experts are warning the Trump administration's dismantling of USAID and the withdrawal from the WHO may have a serious impact on the global effort to contain this deadly virus.
Yeah.
There are growing
And that was one of Trump's initial, like, executive orders, withdrawing us from, like, the Paris Agreement and the World Health Organization.
concerns over yet another deadly virus outbreak. Doctors are monitoring an Ebola epidemic in Africa that may be to blame for dozens of deaths so far. CBS's Lilia Luciano shares the alarming developments and speaks to a US ER doctor who survived the virus.
In Congo's Ituri province, health officials are battling a new Ebola outbreak. The Africa CDC says there are 240...
No, what you do, so Zenobie mentions Congo War 3, Ebola versus drones. What you do is you lace the drones with Ebola, and you fly them in, like, different areas of interest in order to spread the disease to, like, the targets. Maybe you could have, like, North Korea. A while back, they had like shit balloons. They were filling these little balloons with like excrement, and then like sending them across the border to South Korea. They need to do that where they just have like little bags full of like Ebola like infested shit, and then just fly them over and bombard the region.
Disgusting. I have to
6 suspected cases.
Okay.
Pet the cats and stuff.
Leave me alone with the chat.
And at least 65 people dead, the highest death toll from the disease in years. The World Health Organization is concerned.
Well, we know very well that the country has experience, but the region where it is happening is highly volatile with the humanitarian situation going on and the population moving around from South Sudan to Uganda.
I mean, I know they tried to do that to the Native Americans during some of the American Indian Wars. They tried to infest a bunch of linen with contaminate it with smallpox. And they actually tried to deliver it or ship it to the Native Americans in order as some kind of like subterfuge tactic.
Another part.
It didn't really work.
Government officials confirmed the outbreak has now spread to Uganda.
Medical professionals seem very concerned about the possibility or the ability to contain this. Why is that compared to other times?
It's already a big outbreak at the point that we're hearing about it. There have already been a number of deaths, and this is a strain of Ebola for which we have no treatment, no vaccines.
The virus spreads through direct contact with blood and other bodily fluids. Dr. Craig Spencer contracted Ebola while working in Guinea in 2014.
Healthcare workers are the group that I'm really concerned about because they have very close contact with people when they're most contagious, particularly around the time of folks' death.
The U.S. has been the single largest external player in Ebola outbreak response in the past. Now experts are worried what the dismantling of USAID and the U.S. pulling out of the World Health Organization could mean to...
What was it? During the initial Ebola outbreak, which was like a decade ago, I think it was like only like 2 or 3 people from the United States actually got Ebola or died from it. I remember there's one case where there was a dog that caught Ebola. And then there's like all these online petitions for them to quarantine the dog as opposed to euthanizing it. And that like petition, it got more signatures than I believe any other petition on those websites. So it just kind of shows how like people like animals more than they like people.
Stopping the spread of Ebola. Lilia Luciano, CBS News, New York.
In another notable moment, President Xi also suggested that the U.S. and China must reject the old idea that a rising power is destined to battle with an established one. But China does see Taiwan as part of its destiny, and it's willing to take it over by force if required, which is why here in Taipei, people are following news of the summit and with the help of American weapons, preparing for a possible attack.
In what's become a regular show of military power, including missiles, live fire, and simulated assaults by air and...
So the United States now has its hands full dealing with Iran. And we've pissed off our Western allies. So, I don't know, now might be an opportune time for China to go in and try to annex Taiwan.
See, China's message has been clear. Taiwan is ours, and we can take it anytime we like. And now Taiwan is taking that threat more seriously. Vincent Chow from Taiwan's National Security Council explained why
I think what China needs to do is they need to build more artificial islands, and they need to build all of those artificial islands in closer proximity to Taiwan. So that way, Taiwan falls within the maritime borders of those artificial islands. That's how you annex Taiwan.
island is spending more than ever.
Oh, Lloyd says, bro, I thought you quit the internet. Nah, I've just been really busy the past couple months. Lots of work and everything. Plus, Kimberly, my new co-host, she moved out here. So we've kind of had, like, dealing with awkward, like, sort of awkwardness of doing the podcast in the same place. So we're trying to find a way to get a new setup.
On the military.
It's not designed to provoke war. I mean, these are defensive capabilities. I mean, all of this is actually designed so that there will be no war.
I think that only works in Civ 6. Yeah, I think having us both in the same frame works if we're playing video games, but there is a computer I'm going to buy, pretty small. It's a few $100, and I'm going to set it up in my room upstairs so we can both be in separate rooms and both have our own cameras and backdrops and everything. So I should get my new computer within the next week.
Not to provoke war, but to deter war? Oh, absolutely. We're going to be able to prevent China from ever waking up one day and realizing that or thinking that today may be a good day to invade.
In Taipei, the Taiwanese capital, life goes on, with most believing China's threat to a democratic Taiwan is serious but not imminent.
I'm not too worried about it. They have other things to take care of first in their country.
And yet more and more Taiwanese are using this time to prepare. The annual War Games, now larger than ever. And at a market downtown, we met Grace, one of a growing number of civilians preparing...
So Taiwan, they've kind of invested in your typical sort of military, like, sort of spending, or when it comes to, like, a military budget, where it's like, okay, you have your Air Force, your typical, like, sort of equipment, weaponry, vehicles that you want to have. You have, like, a modern Air Force, same thing with the Navy, their Army. The problem there is, like, even though they are, like, also, like, within the top 20 countries in terms of military strength, you compare it to China, and even though it's like, okay, they might have a decent supply of modern aircrafts, modern naval vessels, if China has, like, 10 times the supply of, like, military equipment and weaponry that's just as advanced, well, at that point, it's same level of quality or sophistication, but China has a greater quantity. So the last several years, what Taiwan's been investing in is what's known as, like, the Switzerland tactic, or the porcupine, like, sort of defense tactic, where instead of investing in your sort of conventional military, like, setup, you invest in things like sea mines, maritime mines. You invest in, like, bunkers and you invest in artillery that can be fired at, like, invading aircraft and invading vessels, and you make it as much of a hazard and as much of a cost to invade the country as possible, to the point where China, or whoever wants to invade, will see it as, like, a cost-benefit analysis. They'll view it as being more of a cost than a benefit. So, but unfortunately, Taiwan, they've kind of haven't applied that sort of strategy. They kind of haven't applied it soon enough. So the clock's ticking down, and they kind of need to find a way to implement it before China decides to actually finally invade. So China knows that it's got a very limited margin of time where it can actually deploy troops and actually try to even annex it at all. And then there's their aging population. They have a lot of issues with their economy. They can't generate their own economy. They rely on outsourced labor. So there's only like a 10-year period before they deal with the sort of economic collapse of their aging generation, to the point where they're not going to be able to invest in these sort of military operations. Oh, it says connector encoder. What happened? It says no data. Oh, I think we lagged out for a second. Are we back? God, something happened. Just right when you came down.
Huh.
I don't know.
Boys in the chat.
Yeah.
Themselves to dress wounds and ward off attacks.
Are you worried that Xi Jinping will take Taiwan by force?
If he attack Taiwan, Taiwan should be strong.
Well, anyway, the margin of time, it's narrowing. So China, this is probably a more ideal time than ever for them to actually try to annex it.
So I guess they can fight back.
Are you ready to fight?
Yes, I'm prepared to fight.
Either way, the threat of China is felt all over this island.
Yes, I.
Do you think she would fare well on the front line?
What?
She says she's prepared to fight if China invades.
Taiwan to be strong. So
We
I
fight
guess
back.
they can fight back.
Are you ready to fight?
Yes, I'm prepared to fight.
Either way, the threat of China is felt all over this island. One woman slapped her husband's arm when he started talking to us about independence. Another woman asked that her words not be used, telling us...
I mean, even if the United States or other parties don't get involved, like, wouldn't shock me if China actually does try to invade, and it's the United States trying to invade Iran or Afghanistan scenario, or Russia invading Ukraine, where on paper they have a much stronger military, but it's just the reality of modern warfare. If the people don't want to comply, it's hard to fully control and occupy the region.
You're too loud.
We cannot speak freely. And even at our hotel, where after seeing our broadcast last night, the manager told us...
Is June too loud for you?
We can't cover anything political on their property.
Lori Jia, Lucian Chen, and Viola Ma are all college grads, or about to graduate, living in and around Beijing. I was curious about their thoughts on America.
So, what are some American brands or products you like?
Apple?
Yeah, Apple.
Apple.
Yeah, Apple Watch. Here.
Yeah.
Who are some American artists you like?
My favorite.
Okay, Apple, they have a lot of slave factories in China. So there's a lot of factories in China, especially from Apple, that have nets installed to stop their workers from committing suicide. Oh, you're fixing my hair?
Yeah,
Artist,
well,
will be
I
Lady
know.
Gaga.
Underneath the beanie, it's fucking crazy. You gotta, like, have some order to it.
Yeah, I'm a little monster.
I was the fan of Taylor Swift since Love Story. I always feel there's a connection between me and her. Yeah.
And this answer from Lori about religion, where in China the communist government encourages atheism, surprised us.
Anything else?
Yeah. Well, they have all those concentration camps in, what is it, their East Turkestan, like with the Uyghur people. And then with Buddhism, they, in Tibet, they abducted the, the Pashtun Lama, which they're religious like icon where they're supposed to appoint the new Dalai Lama. And now it's like, because they abducted them and they presented, they're like, hey, like they're being well taken care of. Here they are. And they've shown a photo and it's clearly not the same person. The same, like, Pashtun Lama that was appointed before. So now they've kind of fucked with that sort of like cycle or appointment cycle. So they really want to just control the religion in the area because they want people to worship the state as opposed to religion.
An American culture that you guys love?
Well, I wouldn't say it's love, but I've been really interested in Christianity recently.
Christianity?
Yeah, like I'm not religious, but like I have a couple friends that I met there, and then they were Christian, so like they taught me something about it. But like
Okay, well, Christianity's retarded.
I am atheist personally, so like yeah.
So you're Christian curious?
Yeah, I wanted to know like why they believe in God.
Okay, I would rather, like if I were her, I'd get into like Taoism or Buddhism as opposed to Christianity.
I also asked about a social media trend where young Chinese lie flat, just like this, after graduation. Some say it's a protest to China's slowing economy.
Some of them, they were told to study hard by their parents.
Yeah.
Is that what? Oh.
Maybe since they're primary.
Yeah, and then they can't find a job.
Not everyone. I don't think not everyone. But under huge pressure, they don't know what they really want to do. They were just told what they should do.
I feel like personally I have a very different story to tell because just judge from the experience of me and like my peers around me, we don't really kind of lay flat. I feel like it's more about trying to explore where the opportunity lies instead of just like saying directly that you can't find a job.
Lying flat's like
it's like planking.
Find a place for you to be who you are instead of being pushed forward.
What is happiness for you, do you think, looking into your future?
I think I will stay focused on my job for a long time in the future. I want to make real impacts.
So for me, happiness is like to have your own house, to have the books you like. I think my wish is
I
simple.
wish you the best, man. Shabisky said to tell you God bless. He texted me just now.
But of course, it's not very easy to accomplish.
Oh, what? He sees you in the chat, so he's messaging you?
Nowadays, the houses are very expensive to afford.
And with Beijing hosting that
Yeah, I've had quite a few people who have told me that he sent them DMs because he's seen them like in my Discord or on my streams.
Historic summit between President Trump and Xi Jinping, I wanted to know how they saw the future.
Do you think in 10, 20 years, China and America are still friends, or do you think they are enemies?
I would picture them as friends because I feel like the relationship between big powers is never.
My guess is that, so he mentions they have good American accents for living in China. My guess is they live near Hong Kong. Because, I don't know, there are lots of parts of China where English is commonly spoken.
Like zero-sum games, and I definitely feel like cooperation would bring more opportunity to both sides.
Well, I would say that I hope they would be friends, but I think the reality is not like that.
And that sentiment is...
In the high school I went to, they had a foreign exchange program where, I never, kids would go and, live in China during the summer. So, I didn't want to live in China for, 2 months, but I did visit China. But there were lots of foreign exchange students from China that were, living in the United States I went to school with, and they had a similar, sort of accent where they could speak very fluid English.
Where we leave you tonight. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news.
Maldivian military diver, has died during a search for 4 Italian divers that are missing inside an underwater cave in the Maldives. Officials say the Italians likely died while exploring a cave about 160 feet.
You know where Maldives is?
Is it off of India?
Yep.
South of India?
So it's near Sri Lanka and Maldives. They're the Republic of Maldives.
Authorities say the diver suffered underwater decompression sickness and was rushed to the hospital where he died. The cause of the death's still under investigation.
Rescue crews in the Maldives are searching for the...
Well, I don't know. In Die Hard, Alan Rickman, when he was talking about where once certain funds sent to, he was the Republic of Maldives, I think.
Well, he was
bodies of Italian tourists who died while scuba diving in a cave.
Didn't that video say Maldives?
Well, let me Google it.
Yeah.
There.
It's probably one of those countries where people pronounce it 5 different ways.
Italy's foreign minister says the group of 5 died while exploring this area more than 160 feet underwater. Rescuers have already recovered one of them.
Wait, what happened to... Yeah, what happened to Void?
Maldives.
Wait, yeah, it said all of Void's messages were retracted. Huh.
Bodies. The search for the others has been temporarily suspended due to bad weather. The big mystery is how and why this happened on what should have been a routine excursion. NBC's Raf Sanchez has more.
Hey, Tom, yeah, a real tragedy at sea out in the Maldives. Here's what we know. 5 Italian tourists were killed in this scuba diving accident. That's according to the Italian Foreign Ministry. They were exploring a set of caves about 165 feet underneath the surface of the water. It's not clear exactly what went wrong, but it seems like they weren't able to find their way out of the caves, get back to the surface. If you know anything about scuba diving, you know that that is one of the more dangerous activities you can take under the water. A major effort underway to try to recover the bodies from those caves going on in the Maldives. Now, 4 out of the 5 were associated with the University of Genoa, and one of them, a professor of ecology named Monica Montefalcone, was there with her daughter Georgia, both of them now killed. Montefalcone, actually fairly well known in Italy. She appeared on TV a lot talking about conservation issues, a high-profile academic. At this point, the university is saying the sympathy of the entire university community goes out to the families, colleagues, and students who shared their human and professional journey. So a real tragedy for people at that academic institution. As we said, the Maldives say...
So, if it was 5 Cambodian citizens that died, diving in the Republic of Maldives or Maldives, do you think we'd be hearing about it on NBC?
If it was who? Wait, what?
Instead of 5 Italians, if it was 5 Cambodian citizens or...
Oh, you mean Asians?
Yeah, 5 Nigerians died that were vacationing there.
Depends on how light-skinned they are.
That they are committed to doing what they can to try to recover these bodies from below the surface of the water, and the Italian government says it is in contact with the victims' families and it's offering consular assistance. Tom.
Okay, Raf Sanchez.
Once the world's most populous country, China is no longer growing, hitting its lowest birth rate on record, mainly because fewer young people are getting married. It's not that I don't want to get married, says Ding Ying. It's just life pressure. The reasons for the declines are partly economic, with youth unemployment and housing costs on the rise.
Why do you think people don't want to have kids anymore?
Because kids suck.
Yeah, well, they are kind of expensive. But who's going to take care of us once we age and everything? Maybe robots. Who cares about kids anymore? Robots will take care of everybody.
For the wedding ceremony, we have spent a lot of money.
The marriage rate now the worst since the pandemic, when China was locked down. But values around marriage and family have also changed, especially among China's urban women, like
Oh,
Angela
but
He.
China, we're talking about in China. That's different.
Well, of course, like
it's heavily. So the U.S. is all, you know, oh, you do whatever you want. But like in other cultures, it's like you must have a kid or you're not a woman.
Like in China, they've shifted their views because they had the one-child policy, which Mao is the dude that implemented that, so he clearly didn't know what he was fucking doing, and Mao has likely killed more people than any other genocidal dictator in human history. But they, I think South Korea is number one in terms of, like, having, like, an aging population crisis. Then Japan's number two. China's number three, and most of it's because of the one-child policy that they implemented. And India has surpassed it in terms of being the most populous country. But because of the one-child policy, it's like 6 aging adults to 1 child in a family. So it's this like 6-to-1 ratio. So because of that, fairly soon, it's a very large percentage of their country, the largest age demographic is going to be their like senior population. So then that means that working class or adults or aged adults are going to have to take time away from work to care for the elderly. Even if they don't take all their time away from work, they're still going to have to be working less. And then because of that, they're probably less likely to actually have kids because kids are expensive. And they're not going to be able to, manage making less money while caring for their elders, as well as like taking care of kids. So now it's like there's probably going to be a very notable economic collapse within the next decade. And of course, it's not just like Trump's trying to push for people to have kids. So the United States, like, people aren't replacing themselves, but it's nowhere near the extreme as China and Japan and South Korea.
Who's choosing to own a gym and raise a dog.
And what makes it even worse with China is that, like, Japan and South Korea, they are able to generate their own economy. China can't generate its own economy. And now India is really starting to bleed into that market. Something like Indonesia, where people will outsource labor to India as opposed to China. So it used to be like everything's made in China. That's really starting to change. So they're not going to have that working class generation that provides that cheap outsourced labor. So that's also going to fuck them over.
Instead,
we got more freedom than before. So people can decide what is their life going to be. It's not like a traditional China anymore.
It was only a decade ago that the Communist Party ended the one-child policy that imposed family planning rules to control population. Couples who defied them were punished as unpatriotic, with fines, shaming, even jail. Now caught in a demographic squeeze, China's government is trying to reverse it, giving bonuses to newlyweds, offering marriage vows at spots that look good on social
media. It's also, I mean, this isn't necessarily something to look down on their culture for, but they have a culture that actually does greatly enforce respect towards elders.
Yeah.
So it's considered to be fairly unprincipled to send your elder away to some retirement home, and you're kind of expected to care for your elders until they die. So that's something where because of that culture, people are less likely to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna ignore my elder or just put them in a home. So in the West, especially America, they don't give a fuck about their elders.
And spelling it out in drone shows with diamonds in the sky. To rewire thinking, this university even has a bachelor's degree program in marriage, covering the whole cycle from matchmaking to counseling. In the past, people were more willing to marry and have children to feel secure, says the school's dean. Now they
Jess in the chat says, "God damn, that sounds like hell." Yes.
believe they can live well on their own. For the most part, experts doubt the government's campaign.
What sounds like hell? The situation in China or our audio?
Will lead to any sort of marriage or baby boom here. The challenge for China remaining strong with a population that's shrinking.
See, look.
Sort of marriage or baby boom here.
You don't think it would be fun to carry around
Why do you do this to me?
Challenge for China remaining strong with a population that's shrinking.
It is just constant. Oh, you don't.
And Janice joins us now live here in Beijing. And Janice, in addition to those incentives, some cities even offer money to newlyweds.
Cold hard cash, Tom. Some cities are offering both.
What? Don't think it's fun managing like a toddler that's screaming and like puking all over their clothes.
Others are giving vouchers for things like furniture. There's even paid leave to take a honeymoon. All of these measures trying to get people to get married and have families. The challenge, of course, is whether people are going to go for it.
Yeah, we've heard about that in our conversations here with Beijing's young people.
Trade was a critical topic at the Beijing summit. President Trump says he struck, quote, fantastic deals. But U.S. stock markets fell Friday. The Dow closed down more.
Yeah, no one accomplished better deals than Trump. He has brought America closer to China than any other president, any other world leader.
500 points with few details about what the two superpowers accomplished. CBS's Lana Zak is in Iowa City, Iowa, with reaction from the heartland. Lana, good to see you.
Hi there, Jarika. President Trump is claiming a...
There's a reason we have homes for them with trained professionals to deal with them.
win for American farmers, but China has yet to...
Yeah, but a lot of retirement homes are really shitty. And also, I don't know, that I do think that's a problem where younger generations probably don't give their grandparents or their aging parents the attention that they need.
From any
It's very important for like elders to really get that sort of social interaction. So when it comes to gerontology, one of the things that kind of accelerates, I guess, a person's like demise or death is not really getting like sufficient interaction with other people. And it's something like once like an elder, once their spouse dies, it's like the life expectancy after that, it's like less than a year.
Details, and for people out here, the difference between a promise and a purchase really matters. In Rick Chipman's fields in Harlan, Iowa, young soy plants are starting to emerge.
We're off to a good start.
He farms 1,800 acres of corn and soy in Shelby County, alongside a hog operation that offset last year's losses following a trade war that was devastating for farmers of row crops. The price of soybeans is still significantly depressed, down nearly a third from...
Okay, I do agree with you there. It isn't designed to be nice. Where would you send the abusive parents to as a punishment for their bullshit? I don't know. I would like a very torturous place to send my parents.
2022, and that's why American farmers...
I don't know. I think they probably should have, like, I don't know, like prisons or whatever, where, like, if you can prove that your parents are really shitty parents, you can send them there for the last 20 years of their life, or 18 years.
Ugh, you can't. No one's going to believe you.
Had big hopes for President Trump's trip to China.
We really haven't heard yet if good things have happened or not.
Markets tumbled due to a lack of specifics following the president's promises.
We make great deals, we make great trade deals.
But China hasn't made any commitments, not the timing, not the volume, not even what they're buying. And that matters because China purchases more soybeans than any other nation. The war with Iran has added additional strain for farmers, about a 50% increase in the price of diesel and the cost of nearly...
So China purchasing soybeans.
Everything else, from seed to fertilizer, is rising too.
There's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. It just seems like an auctioneer, you know, when you're filling the planter up.
More farmers are being pushed into bankruptcy as some look for income elsewhere.
There's a lot of farmers saying maybe it's time to go get an off-farm job.
I know, ironically, China, well, they should have plenty of arable land, but because of pollution, it's like a lot of their soil isn't really useful.
Whose?
China.
Hmm.
I feel like there's 5 tiers when it comes to soil contamination. And it's something where it's like the 3rd tier where there's notable health like side effects if you're growing crops with the sort of contaminated water, contaminated soil. And it's just, I think it's like less than 10% of like the soil that they have falls within like, I don't know, like tier 1, tier 2, where it's actually, you know, there's not really notable like adverse health effects to consuming crops grown through that soil, but the overwhelming majority of their soil falls within like the tier 3 to tier 5 levels of contamination. So ironically, they have to import a lot of goods and like water and stuff. Like I know baby formula, it is heavily imported into the country because of I don't know, the poor regulations when it comes to pollution. They've kind of fucked up their land there.
To keep
worse than we have.
Food on the table.
Now, for his part,
Like I said, they aren't able to generate their own economy, but on top of all that, stuff that they could be, certain industries that could exist within their country that work on employing people and generating, or increasing their GDP, are things that they have to rely on importing it, which further negatively affects their economy.
Says he is better positioned than others, but he cautions we should all be paying attention to farm bankruptcies because he says it sheds a light on the health of the American economy as a whole. Jarika?
Lana Zach for us, thank you.
Meanwhile, Africa's top public health body has confirmed a new and deadly Ebola outbreak in a remote Congo province. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says there are 246 suspected cases and 65 deaths so far. The outbreak, the 17th in the country, is centered in the eastern province of Itu.
You already covered the Ebola thing.
The view may be scenic, but next to the river and surrounded by mountains, displaced Afghans are forced to rely on whatever little aid is available to survive. Fighting between
So, Afghanistan and Pakistan are butting heads. So, one, I would say, major contributing factor is that Britain, part of Afghanistan used to be part of, the British territories there. So it was Pakistan. There's the Durand Line. So you had Russia during the 19th century. It was known as the Great Game. So when all the other European countries were sailing off and colonizing different countries, Russia started to expand throughout the Central East. So they started to annex Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and they made it as far as northern Afghanistan. And then Britain, they were the Anglo-Afghan Wars. So there were 3 wars that Britain fought against the Afghan people trying to annex it, and they failed all 3 of them. And then the Soviets went in, and they weren't able to annex Afghanistan. Then we went in, and we pretty much lost our war against people there. So it seems like Afghanistan's known as the graveyard of empires. And there was a treaty with Russia and the British Empire where they drew this line across the different parts of Afghanistan known as the Durand Line. And there's 2 major ethnic groups in Afghanistan. There's the Pashtuns, and then there's it's the Kurdish people. But the Pashtuns or the Kurdish, that might be northern Iraq. But if you look at, maybe I should pull up a map, because it's a good example of during the colonial age, how there's all these awkward, unnatural borders. So you'll have different ethnic groups where a line is divided right in the middle of the geographic region where that ethnic group is currently residing. So what is it? I don't know how to spell it. Yeah, so I think the red area, that's the Pashtun people, and it's divided in between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So you had the British mandate post-World War II, and that's where they divided the territories between Palestine and Israel. And you could see that it was one big clusterfuck because they created all these weird enclaves and exclaves where you'd have different regions that are disconnected from one another that are part of the same country. So it resulted in all these mass migrations that resulted in millions of deaths through conflicts that were caused due to them. And you had the Nakba, where millions of Palestinians died during their mass migration that was enforced by the British Empire. But after World War II, you had East and West Pakistan, and East Pakistan was Bangladesh. So, and that's resulted in all this turmoil between Pakistan and India. So Pakistan was established as an Islamic state, while India was established as a Hindu majority state. So tens of millions of people had to leave their land and migrate to Pakistan, or migrate from Pakistan, Bangladesh to India. And it was one of the largest mass migrations in human history. But then in the 70s, there was a civil war with Pakistan where they had to send troops across the Indian border to get to Bangladesh, and then Bangladesh ended up acquiring its own independence. But currently, this was like they're butting heads with each other. So now Pakistan's gonna go in and try to fight with Afghanistan. So do you think they're gonna fare better, or do you think their odds are better than ours?
Yes.
And I would say that when it comes to instability in Afghanistan, you can blame a lot of it on Britain, Russia, and the United States, but Pakistan also, they're a country that deserves a lot of criticism, because you could blame them for really creating a lot of the different terrorist groups, because a lot of the terrorist groups, after the Soviets invaded, they gave like asylum to a lot of the families, but they built these like indoctrination centers, and they kind of like created the Taliban, and ironically now they're going to war with this sort of militia or this group that they're responsible for creating. And I don't know, now the Taliban, because they have control of Afghanistan, they're caught in kind of a two-front war, because they're fighting this massive ground war with ISIS, and ISIS and the Taliban are fighting for control of Afghanistan, and now they're also going to fight against Pakistan. And Pakistan's currently butting heads quite a bit with India.
Government forces, armed groups, and neighbouring Pakistan has forced them to live in tents. The camps have all...
Yeah,
Lizabra's sick, so she has to force feed Lizabra medication, because Lizabra doesn't like taking medication.
Almost no health facilities, and children can't even go to school.
We left Narai because shells were fired from Pakistan and hit our village. We couldn't live there or even come out of our rooms. We spent the rain under these tents. My children used to go to school in the village, but now the school has been hit by mortars and shells and is damaged. No one is there anymore.
The Pakistani military says it launched operations targeting Afghan military positions, as well as the Pakistani Taliban, which it says is operating from Afghanistan. Pakistan says the strikes are aimed at stopping armed groups from attacking its territory. Afghanistan has denied that. The United Nations says the fighting has displaced nearly 60,000 people in the east and southeast.
We have many problems here. We left our homes, so we have no shelter. People are helpless. They don't have food or even tea. They can't afford to see a doctor. Some are so helpless they can't even reach the provincial hospital.
Even before the latest fighting, the World Food Programme had warned of severe shortages in Afghanistan. This latest conflict with neighbouring Pakistan has left many Afghans in these camps wondering when they will be able to go home and what they'll be going back to. Asad Beg, Al Jazeera.
On the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, what was once a bustling commercial complex is now a heap of ruins. The market less than a kilometer.
Okay, I think I have an idea. Maybe the United States and Pakistan should fund these different militias that oppose the Taliban in Afghanistan. Do you guys think that's a good idea?
From the border on the Afghan side was destroyed by a Pakistani airstrike on March 8th. Overnight, more than 150 businesses were reduced to ashes, including that of Qadar Jan, an auto part vendor. The father of 7 lost everything. Without assistance, he has no means to rebuild his business.
I bought this shop with all my savings. I had to borrow money and I'm still paying off the loan. Look, here, that was the filter, that was the gearbox, there was the radiator, now it's just a pile of ashes.
The losses are immense. According to the owner of the complex, nearly 4 million euros worth of goods and infrastructure went up in smoke.
When I come here and see this devastation, it makes me deeply sad. Millions of goods were imported through the Torkham border crossing and everyone benefited. Now we have no source of income. Since the conflict began, all commercial activity has been ruined, and basic necessities cost so much more.
Just a few hundred meters away, in the Pakistani border town of Torkham, everything has come to a standstill. For 6 months, the border crossing between the two countries has been completely closed. Only a handful of businesses are still open. This restaurant owner reopened 2 days ago, hoping to attract some customers, but to no avail.
We made this curry today as well as other dishes, but there are no customers, no one comes. Yesterday we lost a lot of money.
Relations between the two neighbors have sharply...
What percent of the world do you think isn't poor?
...deteriorated since the Taliban returned to power in Kabul in 2021. They are now facing their most violent clashes in years.
This time the fighting's really intense. There are around 30 or 40 military posts in the mountains on both sides of the border in this region, and fighting regularly breaks out between both sides. Many people have been hit and wounded. We live constantly with the fear that the fighting could start again any minute, and that we'll have to leave.
Before the conflict, tens of thousands of people came here each day from surrounding villages to work. Pakistani exporters cut off from Afghan and Central Asian markets are losing around 150 million euros every month.
Lesser than 1% probably.
More than 120,000 people have been displaced on both sides of the border since the clashes erupted at the end of February. There used to be many porters, truck drivers, buses, and taxis here, but that whole economy collapsed. We have very close ties to the people who live on the other side of the border. We have family members there. We have joint business.
And see, they have lots of family members there. Why? Because they're probably of like the Pashtun like ethnicity, and a lot of that's because of the outward borders that were established by the British Mandate.
Feelings, and we have friendships with them. On a hill overlooking the town, trucks have been stranded for 6 months. Asamla traveled 1,800 kilometers from the south of the country, incurring heavy costs to deliver a container of medicines across the border into Afghanistan. But he has been stuck here since the border closed.
Every 4 or 5 days, I check that everything's working with my lorry. I start the engine so the battery doesn't get damaged.
Before the conflict, the Tulkum border crossing saw nearly 10,000 people and 700 trucks pass through each day.
I've been driving containers for 15 years, but I never imagined that I'd have to deal with a border closure for such a long time.
Yeah, and as you can see, the steering wheel's on the wrong side of the car.
I've run out of money because I only have this one lorry and it's stuck here. In the last 6 months, I've lost almost
Something else you can blame on the British Empire.
€100. I have a large family, there are groceries to buy, the children's school fees, and all other sorts of expenses.
In landlocked Afghanistan, the situation is even more critical. Nearly 46% of Afghan exports transit through Pakistan, compared to just 3.5% in the other direction. The carpet industry has been particularly hit hard. It is one of the country's most important crafts. In this workshop, unshipped orders are piling up. The owner is now in search of alternative routes.
Since we have no access to the sea in Afghanistan, we must use either air or land routes. Before the conflict, all our products were exported via Pakistan. Carpets are also exported by air, but due to the war in the Middle East, air transport routes have been disrupted and freight prices have increased by 50%.
Despite talks between Afghan and Pakistani delegations in early April in Urumqi, China, there is no solution to the conflict currently in sight.
After over a month of...
Okay, I'll be back in a sec. I gotta take a piss. Zenemy, Bill Hicks, try to entertain the chat. Okay, I'm back. Gene pulls a Hassan. Don't even play a video. She's giving Zebra her medication. Getting tired? Yeah. Well, let's get to the next story.
All right, let's begin with the developments in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and reports suggest Pakistan has carried out strikes on Afghanistan and deep inside in the Kunar province. In fact, the Pakistanis conducted air strikes in Asadabad area of Kunar province of Afghanistan, where it seems they have hit a university. Now, this is essentially the Duran line fight going on, and these are the pictures. Perhaps this is a university campus.
Okay. I think we should probably try to end the stream soon. But let's at least get to the last story that's in the title.
Russia's war with Ukraine has raged for more than 4 years and has killed hundreds of thousands on both sides. It's a David and Goliath battle that most thought Ukraine could never win. But is Kyiv starting to gain the upper hand? Even EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas says the dynamics of the war are changing in Ukraine's favour. EU defence ministers are meeting today to discuss how to further support Ukraine.
Through the fog of this war, it's difficult to say who's winning and who's losing, as the conflict stretches well into its 5th year. But many experts and think tanks believe Ukraine could be turning the tide.
It's already been 5 years.
In its favour, and EU politicians agree.
Obviously, the Ukrainian defense plan is working. We've been seeing during the last couple of months that Ukraine has been able to gain more territory than they've been losing. We also take note that the Russians have a great challenge in regenerating their forces. We also see that the Russian economy is at the ropes.
Ukraine has increased its use of long-range drones to penetrate deep into Russian territory. Kremlin watchers say that was the main motivation for the downsized World War II victory celebrations on May the 9th.
Now, do you think if we look at satellite imagery, do you think we'll see collateral caused by the drones, where the drone struck?
Fears of drones
Something I learned from that previous video.
meant there was none of the usual military hardware on display, replaced by a video presentation. And while the conflict continues to drain the Russian economy, Ukraine is turning its new expertise in drone warfare into a global economic opportunity. European and Gulf states are interested in that knowledge and are willing to pay for it.
20 countries are already cooperating with Ukraine at different levels on drone deals. With some, political agreements have been reached, contracts with manufacturers are being prepared, and Ukrainian military expertise is already yielding results. With others, political agreements will be signed soon. Preparations have also begun for a drone deal with Canada, which is an important expansion of security cooperation.
Diplomatically, things are also looking up for Kyiv. After the removal of Hungary's pro-Kremlin Prime Minister Viktor Orban in elections last month, the EU has been able to release a...
Now, I know both sides have had an issue with, troop shortage, but Russia's economy is definitely taking a greater hit because of all the global sanctions. But one of the things Russia has started to do lately is they've, which we all know about North Korea, where Kim Jong-un sent a large amount of troops there, but they've been recruiting a lot of mercenaries from Africa to fight in the war and the meat grinder tactics, and they've been just relying heavily on throwing poorly untrained troops or mercenaries in the front lines to eat up all of the fire, so that way it will expose the positions, locations of the more experienced Ukrainian troops, and then their more experienced troops can take them out. But it seems like they're kind of running out of sacrificial lambs.
€90 billion loan to Kyiv to help fund its defense.
Earlier I spoke to Lawrence Friedman. He's a professor emeritus of war studies at King's College London. I asked him if he agreed with recent report.
Dude, look at that guy. Do you think he's in good shape for somebody fighting the military?
That the tide is indeed changing in favour of Ukraine.
Yes, I think I do. One has to be very careful because there have been periods of great optimism and great pessimism in the course of this war, and battles are very difficult to predict. But we can see that the Russian offensive has stalled. They're expected to be further ahead in terms of their advance into Ukraine than they are. Your story made clear various setbacks they've suffered in terms of Ukraine getting funds from the EU, the quality of their drone warfare. There's probably more long-range drones hitting important targets in Russia at the moment than hitting targets, Russian drones hitting targets in Ukraine, although, of course, there's the Russians direct their missiles and drones directly at cities. So one has a sense that there's greater confidence on the Ukrainian side. They withstood a difficult winter, and now they're making progress. So, yeah, I think there is a shift.
Now, you've described this moment in the Ukraine war as an inflection point. What makes you say that?
Well, I think we've been waiting for some time for a moment when...
Okay, next vid.
Well, new tonight, Ukraine is sifting through the rubble in their capital and across the country after waves of drone and missile attacks from Russia. There have been more than 1,600.
Yeah, so in the last few weeks, Russia's been bombarding them and attacking civilian infrastructure, but just recently, within the last few days, Ukraine has retaliated. So I guess we're going to see the collateral on Russia's side.
Since last night, Ukrainian officials say at least 16 people have been killed and dozens others are injured. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called it a deliberate...
Fair point. Beer guts protect major organs from bullets.
...terrorist attack, and he's calling on worldwide sanctions against Russia.
Also, some folks here are comparing the threat from China to the one Ukraine has faced from Russia.
Do you think it would be like to be like a medic and removing the bullets from somebody's beer gut?
What do you think, though?
Which has launched two...
Oh, it'd be kind of interesting to see just how much visceral fat acts as a buffer.
2 straight days of intense attacks. Today's assault on the capital city Kyiv involved a heavy barrage of missiles and drones, and it left at least 9 people dead and dozens wounded. Aiden Stretch has details from Kyiv.
I'm at the site of a 9-story apartment block that was completely destroyed in the attacks. Emergency workers have been here all day, using cranes and other heavy machinery to dig through the rubble here. We've seen the dead carried away in body bags. Dozens of residents have been rescued, many badly injured, while the search continues for those still missing in this scene of utter devastation. Ukrainian officials say this was Russia's largest missile and drone attack over a 2-day period since its full-scale invasion began in 2022. President Zelensky said that 1,500 drones and dozens of cruise missiles were launched at the capital and other cities around the country. These attacks come after both President Trump and Putin said this week that the war might soon be coming to an end. Tony?
Well, when the war ends, because Trump happens to be in office, it's all going to be because of Trump and Trump alone that the war ended. If Biden was in office, or Kamala, or anybody else, it wouldn't have ended. Because Trump says so.
Aiden, thank you very much.
Next vid. Okay, so now we're seeing the collateral in Russia after Ukraine retaliated. Do you think they intended to hit that apartment?
Do you think, Jane?
I don't know.
Бедные люди. Бедные люди.
I mean, they need to take hints from Israel. So if it was the IDF, that building along with like all the other buildings next to it would just be a pile of rubble.
Люди все уезжают. Охуеть.
Next bid.
They just wanted to live. But the Russians killed them. It's just so tragic. Both the children and the adults who were simply resting, dreaming, going about their lives, working. They wiped them out in an instant. They just wiped out people.
Okay, well, do you think it's getting late? I think maybe this would be a good time to end the stream. It's only been a couple hours. We've got around like 560 views. Hasn't been our best stream in terms of numbers, but we haven't streamed in a couple months, so we are going to work on setting up some kind of new or establishing some kind of new setup to make filming the streams much less awkward. But I do want to get back into the groove of actually streaming every week, so maybe we'll be back tomorrow or the day after. I'm excited to stream more.
Good night.
That's it? I think you need to give them a more energetic symbol.
I'm tired.
Tired. Okay, good night, everybody. See you in the near future.